The Biden administration is sending top diplomat Antony Blinken to tour Asia and reassure allies that America remains committed to the Indo-Pacific region. The trip comes at a time of upheaval in Washington that could see changes in foreign policy after presidential elections in November. Secretary Blinken is making his way to Vietnam, where his 10-day Asia tour begins. All eyes on his next stop, that's Laos, where he will attend high-level meetings with ASEAN foreign ministers. Representatives from China and Russia also attending meetings in Laos, with Mr. Blinken expected to hold talks on the sidelines with his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi. His next stops are Japan and the Philippines, America's biggest allies in Asia, followed by Singapore and Mongolia. Back in Washington, President Joe Biden is preparing to give a speech on Thursday to explain why he dropped out of the race for president. This will be his first address since he gave up hopes for re-election. And for more, Caroline Malone joins us live from Washington, D.C. Caroline, America's Asian allies and partners concerned about possible changes in U.S. commitment post-elections. How much reassurance can Secretary Blinken actually give, given it's just months to the end of Mr. Biden's administration?
Well, this is definitely one of the key aims of Blinken's trip to the Indo-Pacific. It's to reiterate the relationships that have already been established between the United States and Indo-Pacific allies. It's what the State Department describes as a lattice work of relationships, meaning everything from bilaterals, trilaterals, through to groupings. You know, there's everything such as the Quad relationship, which of course involves Australia and Japan and India as well. And then AUKUS, which is involving Australia and the United Kingdom, which is more of a military alliance in terms of providing nuclear-powered submarines to the region. And also, you know, bilaterals, one-on-one, improving business relationships as well. So not just on the military front, but also making sure that trade continues with the region. And in fact, economic trade has increased a lot in the last few years from the US to Indo-Pacific allies. And I think that's what Blinken's going to be reiterating on this trip. He's going to be reassuring, really, partners in the region that those relationships will continue no matter who is in the White House, whether it's Trump or indeed potentially Kamala Harris, who looks like will be the other candidate for the Democrats going forward for the election. We saw it as well, not just from the United States, but from NATO allies at the recent Washington, D.C. summit that was a few weeks ago held here. They were meeting specifically on the Indo-Pacific and on concern over, you know, Russia and its relationships in the Indo-Pacific, namely with China and North Korea, and how to deal with that, with Indo-Pacific partners clearly understanding the global ramifications of that. So, you know, Blinken really will be reiterating that its Indo-Pacific partnerships will stand no matter the political situation in Washington.
Caroline, perhaps a more domestic concern now. President Biden speaking tomorrow, the first public address since he gave up his bid for re-election. What are we likely to be hearing from President Biden?
Well, this is really an opportunity for Biden to go into more detail about his decision to not run for the presidency again, to hand over to his Vice President Kamala Harris. And we heard a little bit of that on the weekend when he announced the decision that he was going to stand down at the end of his term and hand over to Harris. It's also, you know, an opportunity to really boost Harris and explain to the United States why he thinks she is the best person to take over and become the next president. And he's in a good position to do that because a lot of people have lauded his presidency so far, including Harris, who's described how he's achieved more in one term than most presidents are able to achieve in 2 terms, and that he's doing the right thing by stepping down at this point because, of course, there were concerns over his performance in that debate and over his age and mental ability at this point. And Harris is looking really strong. You know, she's had record-breaking US presidential fundraising over the first few days that she announced her campaign. She's made strong speeches, including on Tuesday in Milwaukee, in which crowds really appeared to be energized. She's got enough delegates now to move forward at the Democratic National Convention. So Biden will really be able to reiterate that they are in a strong standing and bring consensus, really, from the Democratic Party, because that's their best chance to go ahead and therefore try and beat Donald Trump in this election.
Thanks for that update. Caroline Malone speaking to us there from Washington, D.C.